So tell me how your work relates to leadership.
Working with horses, you need, in order to be effective and to communicate effectively, you need to be aligned. You need to have full awareness of what your body is doing, where your emotions are, what kind of emotions you're having, and retain clarity of thinking. You cannot put one aside. You cannot ignore your body. You cannot ignore your emotions and just stick to your agenda. It simply doesn't work. Horses want you fully present with the fullness of your experience. And the emotional piece is the most important, because we struggle in our culture with accepting our emotions, and we confuse accepting with condoning or acting out on, which are totally different things.
Yeah. And how does that relate, to leadership? I mean, specifically. I mean, with people, versus horses.
Right. So, in leadership situation, you deal with uncertainty all the time. You deal with people, and your best tool is yourself. And who are you? You're not just the sum of the knowledge you have acquired. You also bring your communication style. How do you, again, have awareness or work with the emotions that come up? Well, in leadership, there's always fear, excitement, there can be anger, there can be regret, guilt, shame, not being good enough, etc. How do those things play into your style, right? And how effective you are?
Yeah. So what's some of the preamble that you deliver to participants, so that they are really open to the experience? Because a lot of people, I'm sure, come in really reluctant and kind of thinking this is new agey.
Yes. So I without using the word, I give them a little introduction on mindfulness, which is really, which you can really boil down to what you just said. Curiosity about your experience. How can you remain open and curious? I don't think that you can be a good leader if you're not curious.
Yeah.
Curious about yourself, curious about people, curious about your market, curious about the broader environment in which you're moving. So my introduction really is about that. What can we be curious about? Can we have a non-discriminating curiosity? Not, how would I say, discriminate between what is worthy of my attention and what is not.
Yeah. In your experience, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing leaders today?
I think that's definitely one. Putting oneself into the picture of what we're doing. And that's for leaders, but it's for scientists as well and politicians. And also having a broader understanding of our impacts. And our impacts meaning not just reaching our goal to the detriment of everything else, slash and burn, or exhausting your team, or having all your co-workers or colleagues burnt out.
Right.
But really taking care of the goal and the process to get there.
Yeah.
When both can be just as important, with a broader, deeper understanding of your impact on the world, not just your shareholders, but your shareholders, your employees, your clients, your market, people, your vendors, etc., etc. This is, I think, what.
When you look at the people that get the most out of the experience with you, that you look at, they get it. I mean, what is that characteristic that they have, and does that characteristic in getting it with the horses in your work relate to them being an effective leader? So two-part.
Curiosity and humor. It's not, you don't need to be courageous. You don't need to have a certain kind of thinking pattern or emotional pattern in order to succeed. You just need to be honest. And for that, you need to be curious. So people who are curious, who have a sense of humor, will do much better with the horses.
In my work, I talk a lot about courage and humility.
Yes.
And that helps you focus if you have the right amount of discipline. Does that resonate?
Absolutely. And I would say courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the ability to face your fear, to recognize it for what it is and say, okay, this is here. How am I going to work with this? Without putting the lid on it, and without just running away. How can I find that middle way? I think that's courage. And curiosity has a lot to do with humility. You need to be humble in order to be curious. You need to be courageous in order to be humble and curious, because you need to be able to engage your not knowing mind. In a culture where we're supposed to know, and as a leader more than anybody else, you're supposed to have the answer to everything. Okay. And if you're caught not knowing, an answer to a question that's being asked, it's embarrassing. So having the courage to say, well, I don't know, let's see where I get from there.
You mentioned mindfulness, and I talk a lot about hearing the unheard.
Yes.
How do you think solitude and introspection inform decisions for a leader?
I think they're fundamental. More and more people, and again, not in a spiritual context, but will practice mindfulness meditation, which is basically, not in order to reach enlightenment or whatever, but really to befriend yourself, to create a space and time of silence and solitude, to see the inner workings of your mind. Who I am really. Can we really discover this in the midst of constant action and noise and tumult? Not sure. Not sure. It's a good solitude and silence are the ideal environment to start noticing how our mind works. When we know ourselves, we're able to be more effective.
And I use the term self-reliant leadership a lot, and it doesn't mean going it alone. What does self-reliance mean to you in the context of leadership?
Self-reliance. It's this, first thing that comes to mind is finding that right balance between awareness of our interconnectedness at all levels, as a leader particularly, and trust. And trust, again, there we go back to courage and humility. You will make mistakes. It's fine. They're wonderful opportunities, unless your company folds. That it folds. It's a wonderful opportunity to learn. So, trust in awareness of interconnectedness.